Andrew Rosindell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I have proudly represented my hometown of Romford in this House for some 24 years. An historic market town since 1247 that has been part of the County of Essex, formerly the Kingdom of Essex, since the 6th century. Essex is my county. I was born at Rush Green Hospital, Romford, Essex. I have lived all my life in Marshall's Park, Romford, in Essex. Went to schools at Rise Park and Marshall's Park in Romford, Essex. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, my house has a Romford, Essex RM1 postcode. My home telephone number has a Romford, Essex 01708 dialing code. And the Church of St Edward the Confessor in Romford Market, where I was christened and confirmed, falls within the Diocese of Chelmsford in Essex. Essex County Cricket Club is our local cricket team, and we support it very strongly. Romford Football Club, who were proud winners of the Vase Trophy at Wembley last year, 1 year ago, are part of the Essex Senior Football League. And last week I hosted a St George's Day celebration at the Romford Golf Club, which is part of the Essex Golf Union. And our local bowling clubs for Romford, Gidea Park and Hornchurch all fall under the Essex County Bowling Association. The Bedfords Park Visitor Centre in the historic Essex village of Havering Atty Bower is managed by the Essex Wildlife Trust, and our water supply comes from the Essex and Suffolk Water. And the Essex Chamber of Commerce ably represents businesses and commercial interests throughout our fine county. And on Essex Day, the 26th of October every year, the Mayor of Havering, my borough, raises the Essex flag from our town hall in Romford to demonstrate local pride and love of our historic county. Romford is geographically Essex. We are historically Essex. We are culturally Essex. And our social, sporting and commercial connections have always looked towards the County of Essex. Myself and my constituents are proud of our Essex identity, which transcends local government or administrative boundaries that are forever changing as they are again today. Indeed, the London Government Act of 1963 created a new administrative region to be known as Greater London. This...
Order.
I beg to move that this House do now adjourn.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. Andrew Rosindell.
This, Madam Deputy Speaker, is when our problems began. Instead of retaining the Romford Borough Council and the Hornchurch Urban District Council as part of the Essex County Council administrative area, it was decided to incorporate Romford and Hornchurch into the new Greater London and create a London Borough of Havering. Ever since then, our Essex identity has tragically been diminished and even discarded by some, as if centuries of history in belonging to such a great English county can end simply because of local government reorganisation, which was lazy in its construction and took no account of our history. This has led to 60 years of muddle, confusion and constant debate as to whether Romford and Havering remain part of Essex or not. But the truth is, the new London boroughs formed in 1965 were never removed from their historic counties of Essex, Middlesex, Surrey, Kent and Hertfordshire. Of course.
David Simmons.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm grateful to my honourable friend for taking my intervention. He's making an excellent speech on a subject which is close to my constituents' hearts as well. Does he agree with me that other government institutions should follow the lead of the Speaker in flying, for example, the Middlesex flag on Middlesex Day to celebrate the heritage of my constituents, that the heritage of Essex should be celebrated in a similar way? And does he also join me in encouraging number 10 Downing Street and the Prime Minister to follow the example of his predecessor in flying both Middlesex flag on Middlesex Day and the flags of the other historic counties on their relevant days in the coming months?
So,
Rosindell.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for making the point about the flying of historic county flags. Middlesex Heritage is an organisation that was established by Russell Grant and has promoted the importance of the heritage of the ancient county of Middlesex. They actually purchased 2 Middlesex flags and they gave them to the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson, one of which was proudly flown from number 10 Downing Street, of course London being part of the county of Middlesex. That tradition continued under the next Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, the former...
The Right Honourable Member for Richmond and North Allerton.
Indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. So I would say to my honourable friend that I do hope that the current Prime Minister will uphold that proud tradition and later this month fly the Middlesex flag. I think it would please a lot of people in the historic county if he were to continue with that important tradition. And indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker, the historic counties remain today and are proudly celebrated by local people across the historic counties throughout England. And Mr Speaker's demonstrating that by flying the historic county flags here in the House of Commons on each day for each historic county. So what happened 6 decades ago was only a change in local government structures. Sadly, also ceremonial arrangements, which was completely unnecessary, were also changed, which added to the confusion, removing Romford from our rightful place under the Lord Lieutenancy of Essex. It seems that changes like this happen every few decades when new governments take office, just as we are seeing again today. So, I say to the Minister, let's do this properly and get things right. In Havering, we have much in common with Brentwood, our neighbouring town, but not really with Brentford in West London. Epping is on our doorstep, but Ealing is a long way from our neck of the woods. We visit Southend, but we never go to Southall. What works for Hampstead is not always what is required in Havering, and it is unlikely that my constituents could tell you where Collier's Wood is, but Collier Row is of course a cherished part of Romford, Essex, and has many rural parts that feel like you are deep in the English countryside. Now, I want to make clear that I'm not suggesting that the people of Havering do not value the important connections we enjoy with the City of London and what is known as the East End of London. Of course we do. So many families, including mine, moved from the east side of London out to Essex over the past century, and our links to London are vital for us, for business, for work, for travel, for tourism, and of course family connections, not to mention going to the theatre in the West End. Coming from a borough that orbits the capital, I can tell the Minister that the people of Havering are not opposed to cooperating with boroughs, towns and communities to the east when it makes sense to do so. But Greater London as a region with an overarching mayor is too big and too remote to meet the needs of a borough such as Havering, which proudly considers itself to be part of Essex. It is also very costly for us as we pay tens of millions of pounds per year to the Greater London Authority, which equates to a vast sum for the GLA precept per household. An exorbitant amount of money, in fact, that my constituents simply cannot afford. London-wide policies also imposed on us, such as planning decisions and ULEZ, of course, whilst the services we are meant to receive, we don't get, and are completely inadequate, with policing being the worst example, of course.
James Murdoch.
I thank the honourable member for giving way. And he mentions an important point with ULEZ. And In my constituency of South Basildon and East Thurrock, there's been huge concern around the creep of ULEZ, and also, though denied, I understand conversations between local councils about Thurrock joining London. Would he agree with me that Thurrock, like his own constituency, is Essex through and through, and it should remain that way?
Well, I thank the honourable friend for his intervention. He's completely right, of course. Havering and Thurrock, we are neighbouring boroughs, and we are Essex through and through. And he's very lucky, of course, because in the honourable gentleman's constituency, they don't have London-wide policies imposed on them, so they avoid ULEZ, they avoid planning interference from the Mayor of London, and so they are free to make their own decisions, in fact, as a unitary authority. So I commend the honourable gentleman for what he said, and we are certainly on the same page on this issue. And so, in terms of police, we barely see a policeman in Romford. They are mostly seconded into inner London areas, and this is compounded by the tri-borough arrangement merging Havering with Barking and Dagenham and Redbridge. So, we now get even less police on the streets of Havering. I certainly will.
Shannon.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I commend the honourable gentleman from Romford? And all the time I've known him here, he's always been British to the core, and there's absolutely no doubt about that. Whilst I'm a supporter of devolution as a nation which is devolved in many, many matters, I spoke to the honourable gentleman beforehand. I also understand the complexity. And does the honourable member not agree that devolution is only as useful as the people you have in place carrying out the job? Effective people are the key. And would the honourable member further agree that devolution must have community support, and whether it be from Essex to Strangford or Strangford to Essex, the general public must always have the final say?
Well, I'm very grateful to the honourable member for Strangford. He's completely right, and any type of devolution has to have the consent of the people. And I have to say to you, Madam Deputy Speaker, that I don't believe the current Greater London devolution arrangement really does have the consent of people in Havering. I think if there were to be a referendum tomorrow, they would overwhelmingly vote to leave Greater London and be a unitary authority, but maybe there are other options, and that's why this debate about Havering Borough and Essex devolution is so pertinent today, and I look forward to the Minister's response later when I put some of my arguments forward. So, going back to what I was saying about police, all but one of our police stations have been closed, and my constituents are deeply unhappy with the lack of police cover that we receive, despite the huge amounts we contribute financially to the Greater London Authority. This is no fault of the dedicated officers who form the day-to-day rank and file backbone of our local police operation. The local force is dedicated and determined to respond and prevent instances of criminality that blight the locality, but they are undermined by a lack of resources that we in Havering pay for but simply don't receive. Indeed, if you speak to my constituents, they will tell you that they believe Havering residents are effectively subsidising inner London areas and, through the Greater London Authority, fund what I believe has become a London-wide bureaucracy in City Hall and associated London-wide quangos, which is hard to see how the people of Havering benefit and, more often than not, has no relevance to local people in my borough whatsoever. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, the reason for my adjournment debate today is to ask the Minister to please allow us to look at alternatives. Now is the time to consider Havering's future. With devolution for what is termed Greater Essex now being implemented, this must surely be the right moment to examine a change that would give the people of Romford, Hornchurch, Upminster and Rainham hope that we could be part of something that better suits our local needs and goes with the grain of our historic identity. If the government truly believes in genuine devolution, then I hope the Minister will agree that local people should determine what is best for them, and a borough like Havering must surely have the freedom to consider all options for our future. I would request that the government now open up a meaningful conversation with the people of Havering about devolution for Essex that could include Havering, so that we can look sensibly and in detail at ideas for change. Let me make one thing crystal clear, though. The Freedom Travel Pass for pensioners is often cited as one of the benefits of being part of Greater London, as if the Mayor of London provides it to us for free. That is not the case. My borough pays in millions to buy into this scheme and has always done so, and will always continue to do so. We pay millions of pounds for this privilege. I will always defend and support the Freedom Pass, as our older folk deserve the benefits it gives them.
Well, my honourable friend,
I certainly will.
Thank you very much for giving way, and may I commend him on an excellent speech, Madam Deputy Speaker. Would he agree that boroughs like mine, Bromley, and my constituency of Bromley and Biggin Hill face many of the frustrations that his constituents in Havering also face, and that we are also contributing huge amounts of money to the Mayor of London?
Absolutely. My honourable friend for Bromley and Biggin Hill is completely right. The people of Romford feel the same as the people of Bromley, the people of Ruislip, and other parts of outer Greater London who are disenfranchised with the current settlement. And so, on the Freedom Pass, I have long argued that the scheme should be extended to all council areas where TfL operate. Indeed, the Elizabeth line runs to Shenfield and the Central line runs to Epping. Other TfL services operate in local authority areas that go way beyond the supremely outdated boundaries of Greater London, to the west side of London in particular. So any travel schemes like the Freedom Pass must surely be offered equally to all local authorities that TfL serve. The Freedom Pass for older people and others should not be used as a reason to never change the structure of local government in what I call the capital region of the UK, which now stretches far beyond the 1960s Greater London boundaries. May I also make clear that I do not personally agree with the creation of super-unitary authorities, which I believe will prove to be very remote from towns, villages and neighbourhoods, and from real people who want local democracy to be truly local, with councillors who genuinely know their wards and understand the areas they represent. However, if the government are set on going down this path, as they are now doing in Essex, I believe it is inevitable that boroughs in Greater London will go in the same direction at some stage, with amalgamations of councils taking place. Already there is much discussion about this prospect, with varying proposals being put forward and openly spoken of by think tanks, local government officials, and amongst London elite circles, of course. Let me say here and now that if Havering is destined for eventual merger with the East London boroughs in some new super council configuration, this is not something my constituents or I would support. We in Havering are a town and country borough with an Essex heritage and a special character that local people cherish and will fight to retain. So, based on the principle the government are already pursuing with the creation of expanded unitary authorities, I ask the Minister to please consider Havering for collaboration, for example, with our neighbouring Essex local authorities, such as Brentwood or Epping Forest, both of which are also served by Transport for London and have much in common with Romford and Havering. It has been evident for a long time that Havering is at a crossroads and is now becoming abundantly clear to anyone who dares to look. Either we continue on a path of future London integration, or we take a new path in line with our heritage, which fully realises our Essex roots, culturally, economically and politically. I, alongside the people of Havering, strongly argue that this second path is one we should and indeed must walk. It could just be, much to the surprise of many of my constituents, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the new Labour government's plan for devolution and local government reorganisation might actually provide the opportunity we need to finally take control of our own affairs and our future restored to becoming part of Essex local government structures once again. Wouldn't that be a plus for the people of Romford if it was a Labour government that actually delivered what they've been asking for so long? And so this is what I've been fighting for over the course of my entire political life, not as a personal preoccupation, but because it is what everyone in my constituency believe, from local families and business owners to pensioners and market traders, and indeed young people. They all tell me that that is what they want. They want their identity restored to being part of Essex and having our local control away from central London and City Hall. It is, Madam Deputy Speaker, high time that their voices were listened to, and this opportunity seized to shape Havering and Essex for the better. Today, I believe we have a once in an almost century chance to look afresh at the old boundaries of Greater London that were constructed 6 decades ago. The entire region around our great United Kingdom capital of London has changed dramatically since those days, and we should therefore now seize this moment to be bold and look at options for change that local people would be happy to see, thus giving my constituents of Romford, Hornchurch and across the borough of Havering hope for a much better structure of local government, rightly determined and supported by the people it is established to serve.
Minister, Jim McMahon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm grateful to the member for Romford for securing this important debate and for raising the question of Havering Borough's place in relation to devolution in Essex. I also pay tribute to the member for championing his area and for the very clear passion that he has for the place that he represents. I do think one thing that is quite special about Parliament is the connection and the pride in which members speak about the place that they live and represent, and I absolutely heard that in every canter through the historic county of Essex and just how rooted it is in that kind of county ceremonial historic identity. And I accept that completely. Although our reorganisation was a bit later in Greater Manchester in 1974, I would say many of us still feel that we are Lancashire to our heart, even though we are part of the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, and I think it is possible to be proud of both. You know, we are proud in the way that we look to Manchester and the success of that city region, but proud too of our historical roots in Lancashire. And so I think the two are possible. He might find it useful to know that actually one of the first things that we did in coming into government was to change the way that the county flags were flown for a very long time. The department that I represent held all the historic county flags for England in the department, and whenever the historic county day came up through the course of the year, that flag would be flown from Marsham Street in a very, I would say, average office block. I didn't think that quite gave the status, actually, to the historic counties, and I don't think it gave the opportunity for members of Parliament and for visitors to see the county flags. And so those have been transferred to Parliament, to the Speaker's office. And so in addition to Counties Week, which is the 21st to the 27th of July, when all the county flags of England are in Parliament Square, on the day of each counter, the county flags will be flown in New Palace Yard as well. And I think that really is the appropriate place, and hopefully members will search out their flag on that day. I do think that identity and belonging is really important. Now, as my honourable colleagues will be aware, this government has made a clear mission to extend devolution to all corners of England while fixing the foundation of local government. Our work with councils across Greater Essex demonstrates the strength of this ambition as we endeavour to establish new county combined authority for the area while delivering local government reorganisation. The government recently conducted a public consultation on our proposals to establish a mayoral combined county authority across Essex County Council, Thurrock Council and Southend-on-Sea City Council as part of the devolution priority programme. Responses to this consultation are currently being assessed, and I will be shortly making a decision on whether to proceed with the making of the necessary legislation, subject to further consent from the councils involved. These 3 existing council areas firmly form the current proposed footprint for the future devolution of Greater Essex, as the consultation outlined on that basis. These 3 councils, along with the district and borough councils across Essex, were also invited in February to submit proposals for a new unitary structure for that county. As requested, they submitted an interim plan in March, and we have provided feedback to support the development of final proposals, which are now due in September. It is for these local councils to develop these proposals and for government to assess on that basis. It's currently not envisaged that the boundaries of Greater London would be changed or that the proposed Greater Essex Mayoral Combined County Authority would be expanded, although the latter would be possible at a later date should it be locally desired and should the statutory test be met. As for changing the boundaries of the councils themselves across Greater Essex, this will be for the councils to propose if they wish, as they develop and submit proposals to the government for unitary local government in that area. We remain open to discussions with any council across England on their vision for their region, and to continue to encourage discussions across councils and areas as we deliver on our ambitious agenda for local government. I hope that this brief and no means exhaustive summary of our plans for Greater Essex and devolution and local government reorganisation has provided helpful context to the member for Romford. And I do understand completely the point he makes about Havering being anchored in Greater London completely. But I hope he does take some reassurance that the guidance that we have sent out right throughout the process has anchored two things that I think he touched on in his speech. Firstly, that the administrative boundaries that are being drawn about efficiency and having a single tier of local government that people can hold to account is important, and also, of course, is sustainable in the future. But that in no way is intended to cut across the identities that people feel and are proud of. And no council should try and cut across that historic identity that local areas do feel. The second point I will say is that every council, regardless of its size, regardless of where it is in England, should always root itself in local communities and local neighbourhoods. I think the days of councils being disconnected and removed from local communities is long gone. And actually, I think that empowers local councillors from being the frontline community conveners that they stood for election to be.